All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mindset Mastery. It is Suzanne Hart, and I am so excited to be here this evening. I'm excited for my guest, and our topic tonight is You Were Born an Entrepreneur, tapping into your innate brilliance. I really want that to land for you. You were born an entrepreneur. As you join us, what I'd like you to do is type your name in the comments section. Let us know where you're joining from and what you do. Whether you're listening to the replay or you're listening live, type in the information because this is an opportunity to network. This is an opportunity to connect with other listeners and let them know what you do. You never know. You might type something into the comments section and someone might say, I need to connect with that person because they have a product, a service, a talent that I need to know more about. So get to typing. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is bless a life. And what I mean by that is share this video. I can guarantee you that the content is going to be absolutely brilliant. I've been excited. I've been wanting to sit down with this gentleman for it's been a number of years. Timing finally made it happen. So here we are. So let's jump right into it. As I said, my name is Suzanne Hart. Topic, you were born an entrepreneur, tapping into your innate brilliance. So let me introduce a gentleman sitting beside me. Finally, I'm excited. He is a best-selling author. He's also a revered marketing and business advisor to entrepreneurs and business owners. He is the host of Conversations with Black Millionaires. I'm going to say that again, Conversations with Black Millionaires, and recently the founder of the Master of Business Mastermind. I can't wait to hear more about that. He has been seen on NBC, CBS, Radio 1, and a host of other stations and radio stations, also online. And get this, has shared the stage with Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, our mentor and friend George Fraser, and has spoken to audience as large as 20,000. So please help me welcome Brother Bedford. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and thank you. I'm extremely excited to be here with you, Susan. As you mentioned, this has been a long time coming. We just haven't had that opportunity to click, right? The timing just hasn't been perfect for us to sit down and have this type of conversation. We have communicated, I've interviewed you, we've had some interaction, but on this level to be able to talk about a subject that I believe is dear to both of our hearts, I'm extremely excited. I can't wait for us to dive in and see what God blesses us to come up with.
I so concur. And I have to tell you, I've been watching your videos. The new year started with a series of videos from Brother Bedford. And I was like, what is he up to?
Yes.
And so I had to put out the call, and thank you so much for saying yes. And I'm so glad that the timing is perfect. So let's jump into the interview. And the first thing I really want to know is, you are the coach mentor for Black men and women who are in business, entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Why was that your choice of things to do? Because there's many things we can do, but you chose a certain demographic and a certain gifting. Why?
Right. Well, first, I guess you could say it's the choosing of the demographic, but that was really the demographic that I was born into. And kind of when you look around and see who is in the periphery, who you have access to, this is where the market was, right? I didn't say that I wanted to just do this in spite of. It's just this was my surroundings. And then to learn the challenges that we have as Black people in general, but when we're talking about entrepreneurship and business, and to see why we could not get over the hurdles. The statistics are glaring as to the gaps, the disparities of Black business and white business, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And so as I grew, now first it was just a passion to work with us. But then as I started studying and learning more about entrepreneurship and business, to see that there is a difference. Entrepreneurship and business in principle is the same for everyone. But due to our condition and our sojourn here in America and in the Western Hemisphere, we have a unique set of challenges that others do not face. And I think that's one of the problems that we face when we see us opening our doors and closing them, opening our doors and closing them at such an alarming rate. It's just that we haven't really put our finger on the fact that there is a difference between just entrepreneurship and Black entrepreneurship. One point that I will make when you mention choosing that demographic, that target audience, most Black people, when they start businesses, they don't have that luxury, right? To think that they could serve an outside market or a demographic. And that in and of itself is a challenge that we have to overcome, to where you open up a business and now you have to learn to deal with the unique set of circumstances of serving Black people in your, whether it's a brick and mortar business or whatever it is, your primary customers are going to be customers that look like you. And sometimes we try to insert just the regular marketing principles that cover all businesses, but we have a unique set of circumstances that must be looked at. And so we help Black entrepreneurs and business owners to take a critical look, analyze, examine these situations, to know that I have to serve my market different. There are ways that I have to approach my service, my charity, all of these different things that don't happen or even exist in other communities, but we face them.
I love it. And I know for myself, as I went through my journey, and I started my journey in network marketing, and I remember getting all the training and all the know-hows. Right. And I thought I was armed and dangerous, and nothing happened. Right. Literally nothing happened. And I watched all my surrounding peers, they took off like lightning, and I felt like I was still sitting in my starting blocks and going, what is wrong? What is happening? And it's exactly what you're talking about. I remember sitting down with Delzino and having a conversation around like, what? And really beginning to recognize that there's a unique way we cast vision. Yes. There's a unique mindset that we have to navigate. Yes. There are issues that are very different. Yes. And how do we see ourselves represented in this marketplace? Absolutely. And so it was only when I began to, kind of do things my way. Yes, I took the training and I took the knowledge, and business is business, but there's a way of being, there's an energetics, there's a way of being, there's a way of thinking. We navigate and move differently. Absolutely. And absolutely. I had to embrace that. And, oftentimes people want to deny it, but for me, it was really embracing and accepting it.
No, that's such a beautiful point. And that's, again, there's so many of us who never get to that point of realization, and we're forced to close our doors, or the frustration and all of those things build up. Of course, we'll start saying Black people don't support Black people and all of those different things, but we have to understand we have a unique set of circumstances and how to navigate to provide goods and services and support, and even know when to push back on our community in order for us to stay in business. I'll just give you a quick note that I learned from my brother, Professor Devin Robinson, who wrote a book about this called The 50 Obstacles That Black Entrepreneurs and Black Businesses Face, and we have to overcome these things. And one of those is when we open up businesses in our communities, the pressure is on us to support the community. Sometimes they'll come in and here it is, you're not profitable. So again, here we're talking about just regular business, but now you open up a business in the community, and then all of a sudden people come in and say, hey, we need you to sponsor this. So can you buy the t-shirts for this group or this group? And you're not even profitable yet. And if you say no, there's a chance that that group may say, well, we ain't coming to support your store. Absolutely. But they do not hold other businesses in the community to that extent. They don't even go to the cleaners that are owned by different people or the beauty supply stores and say, you know what, we need you to support. And if you don't support, we're not coming back. If they don't support, they still go back. But that's something that as Black entrepreneurs and business owners, we face. That's a reality that we face.
Know it intimately. And I remember the conversation. I was like, what? Yeah, it's real. It's real.
It's real.
Yeah, it's
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 real.
very real.
Mhm.
So you boldly say that you were born an entrepreneur. In other words, I am born an entrepreneur, you're born an entrepreneur, and everyone listening, I want you guys to get this. So everyone listening to this live, you are born an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Why do you believe that?
Well, it's really just a fact, you know. And first, let's see if we can demystify the term entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneur is just a French word that was really just introduced a little over 150 years ago, right? It was introduced into the industrialized language. Once this country moved to industrialization, that's when you had the term entrepreneur come in. That's when you had the educational system being structured to train people to think about jobs. But just prior to that, practically everyone in America in the Western Hemisphere were entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
So everyone was born with the capacity to do something for themselves. You have a unique talent, skill, gift. You're able to create products and services. And in fact, if you go back further than the French word, if you look up entrepreneurship using the Sanskrit language, which is one of the oldest written languages, it's pronounced similar, right? Entrepreneurs, but it's spelled completely different. But the meaning of that word is creativity. Right? So many of us, all of us are born with some form of creative capacity, some type of vision and ideas where we can take our talents, our skills and gifts and learn how to put them into the marketplace at some form of profit. So we're all born this way, but yet a little over 100 years ago, when the industrial age started, the education and the training and the thinking, and it was, I want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, right? But those who wanted to get into these industries, it was to their best interest to make sure that the education and the training of the American public was that they would say, I need to go to school, get good grades so that I can get a job, not create a job, not do for yourself. I need to get a job by those who are becoming more industrious and creating industry. So that's really the core. But I'm gonna tell you what really cemented that thought for me. Alex Haley, who was a struggling writer for Reader's Digest in the 50s and 60s, and he heard Malcolm and others, Muhammad Ali and those who were around during that time, and he wanted to interview Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm and all of them, but I believe it was Malcolm who gave the interview and talked about our greatness and where we come from and our origin and how we think. And it was Alex Haley who started to go back and trace his roots. And then he found his roots. But one of the things that happened as he wrote the book, and then of course that became a movie, which every Black person should see.
I did know that.
Yes.
You cannot see this movie because it is, and I know I'm jumping in, but it is the evolution of a man from not knowing to knowing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
From not knowing himself to knowing himself to beyond what we actually fathom as possible.
Absolutely.
And that's when we become, I'm gonna say dangerous, but that's when we become dangerous.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you know thyself to the point where you understand your capacity and your giftings that you can embrace everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny that you said it. So in knowing thyself, one of the rituals that Alex Haley displayed to us, because again, when this movie came out in the 70s, this is not something that was common. We didn't, in fact, we were taught the opposite, that we were not this great. We didn't have this type of lineage, this type of history. But one of the rituals, the naming ritual that happens is that when the baby is born, the baby is taken out into the night or the early dawn, and then is held up and says, behold, the only thing greater than yourself, right? And so that's the beginning of their journey, right? Knowing this is ingrained from the cradle to the grave. Not so when we're here. So when I studied that and began to realize that all of us have this potential to be great, to have some form of talent or gift that we could exploit to serve others.
Absolutely.
There's not a human being that does not have that. But again, the educational system didn't teach us, behold, the only thing greater than yourself. This education says see, spot, run, right? See,
Right.
then, you know, so we were dumbed down. There's another study that if we have the time, we could talk about another study that talks about the genius of us. But we were born with that capacity, but the educational system has told us not to pursue that.
And I love the fact that you're talking about this, and I just want to bring people back to their children, because you'll see it, right? You ever watch a child in the backyard and they're in full imagination, and
Yes.
they're embodying something, someone, a career, and they're in full creativity,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you know, then they go to school and you get them to tell your child to stop daydreaming.
Yep.
My child is creating. That is exactly what's happening. They're in full creation, and they embody it, and they talk, and you see it. So it's absolutely there. But then we go to school, and I think there's two things about, you know, when I got this, because like you, when I got this, I was like, what? Because you know, I've been told to study success by my mentor. So I start comparing, and I realized that wealthy people, let's just be real, wealthy people go to school to build a network.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's why they go to higher education, country clubs, all these things, to build a network. The average person goes to school to get an education. Wealthy people build their network so they can create businesses and they can become entrepreneurs. And the average person goes to school so they can get an education, so they can claim a seat in someone else's business.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, if you think about that, wealthy people are still in dream state, vision state, and we average go to school to build their dream and vision. And when I got that, I was like, okay,
there's something wrong with this, right?
It's time for change.
Yeah.
It surely is time for change.
That's right. That's right. It's funny that you mentioned that the age, and this is what I was alluding to, but you went right there. There was a study done by NASA, and it was really a study for the process of helping the engineers and the scientists to become more creative. And they began this study to find out where was their genius, where did the genius lie? And those who conducted the study, because I know we don't have all day, so I'll condense it real quick. But those who condensed the study say, wow, if this is working for the engineers and astronauts and scientists at NASA, let's go ahead and take this study and expand it. And this study expanded into children. And they discovered that children, all of us, again, going back to this is where this theory is cemented, is that all of us were born genius. All of us were born with this creativity, this imagination to do things. But this study found that by the age of 5, once they get into the school system begins to dumb them down and kill the genius. And they follow the individuals. So where a person had a 98% genius going into elementary or preschool, by the time they were 30, or in their mid-20s going into their 30s, they were down to 4-5% genius, which shows you that it's the school system is not designed to foster that creativity, that imagination, that vision that you were speaking of.
Absolutely. And I think the thing to realize is the school system is based on memorization, right? So it's not based on you creating and thinking for yourself and creating new ideas. It's based on, we have a series of ideas that you now have to memorize and effectively regurgitate. Now, I know this intimately because I'm not good at it. It was hard for me, right? Because I just didn't understand why I had to memorize things. It never made sense. But to create is to really to break apart, put back together, bring ideas to the table. It's a totally different dynamic. And so that is you know, gradually removed, and you'll see past family counselor, right? So you'll see the problematic kids at school are often highly creative. They don't want to memorize. They want to go figure things out, and they're labeled the disruptors.
Absolutely.
Right? I had one child in my caseload that was so disruptive, and when you spend time, I tell people, if I had to get lost somewhere, I'm going with this child right here. because I know he's going to figure things out. He's going to come up with a solution. We will be good.
Isn't that something? Isn't
That's the
that something?
creative genius.
Yeah, it reminds me of the way that we used to navigate. Again, we used to be able to read the stars, to be able to chart our courses. But again, we've lost that. But here's the thing, and I think all of us who are watching this, or you wouldn't even be on this particular webinar or streaming service if you didn't understand that there was more that
Absolutely.
you can get, more that you can have, right? And so all of us know that the surroundings, the educational system, the training, everything that we've been through is not quite working out the way that we thought it would. And in fact, you see the school system is really suffering and people going into arenas that don't even fit them. How many people are in this world, but in America or in the Western Hemisphere, who have gone to school, got the training, got the degrees, but yet they're working in fields that they have no desire to be in. They none at all.
Absolutely. Or they are struggling
Yeah.
because they also are missing a key component
Yes.
that will allow them to also succeed. So we're in total agreement. And for everyone listening, if you were identify with this and put a comment in the comment section in terms of, yeah, I get it. I'm in a career that I don't want me. I'm ready to step into entrepreneurship. Let us know that this is resonating with you. So we've lost it. And I speak to people every day. Like one of the groups that I coach are people who are, I'm in a career and I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working out. I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. Right. And I'm wanting to transition. And so my next question is, since I was born an entrepreneur and I went to school and I kind of lost it, right? How do I begin to get it back? How do I begin to unearth that innate brilliance? What do I begin to do?
Oh, I love your word choice with unearth, because that's exactly what it is. And it's funny, we've been talking about education, but in truth, what we've been getting is not education. It's training, right? As you mentioned, it's teaching you to memorize something, training you. It's under the Prussian educational system, which was built for the military and training. That's exactly what it's for, to train you to do something, to work on factories and things like that. But true education, when you look at that root word, educare, right? It means to lead out or to cultivate, to bring out what is already in. So a great teacher is not interested in putting something in. A great teacher is interested in bringing out of you what God has already placed in you. So when you use the term unearth, right? That means that we're made from the earth, right? Our skin is of the soil of the earth, the plants of the earth, the stone is our bones. So we are, every element that is in the earth is within us. And so that gift, that talent, that skill, as you mentioned, it needs to be unearthed. So we need true education. It needs to be cultivated. And today, the best way to do that is self-education, making the choice to attend events like this, to hire mentors or coaches such as yourself and others who are in the space to help cultivate, to unearth that desire again, because desire is what would feed your will to be able to do things. But if you don't have the desire, that's one of the worst things that has happened to us in the educational system, is that it has literally killed the desire to even want to explore these things that we're talking about, to get back to being creative, to get back to being free, to get back to being able to say, there's a vision, something that I want to bring into reality, and then I go to work to bring that about. So to get back to that requires us really embracing the concept of self-education and finding those teachers, those mentors, those guides, those coaches to be able to help us to cultivate what is already in us, because we can't really do it ourselves. That's the biggest challenge, is that you need to find people. And you mentioned it, others go to school to network and to mastermind, because in just that relationship, you're going to run into someone who brings out of you something that you didn't know existed. They're going to point out something to you. And so we have to begin to take that journey of self-education. There's really no other way to receive the type of knowledge and experience and expertise that you and I are talking about if you do not get on this journey of self-education. education.
You know,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I love what you're saying. I remember, so I graduate college if you're in the US, university if you're in Canada. So I graduate
Right.
and I got my first job, and I get the privilege of being supervised by a panel. I want you guys to get this, a panel of 4 brilliant
Wow.
Black professor-like people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this one person called Cherie Elder. Love you, Cherie.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I would do stuff for her, and it would come back marked up in red and all questions. And I'm young, and I'm accustomed to the educational system.
Right.
So I go in one day and I go, I don't think you like me. You're just picking on me. And this woman looked at me and she said, child, I don't have to like you. I just need to find your greatness.
That's right.
And I was like, what? She said, I just need to find your greatness. She goes, there's greatness in there, and I'm going to find it.
Wow.
And this woman proceeded to, and the reason I'm sharing this story is for you guys to get this. She proceeded to tell me the education or the training or the things I had to do outside of my education. I remember her saying to me, you're not going to be a good counselor unless you understand urban studies. Do you understand the move and flows of cities, the dislocation of people, dislocation of Black people? I was like, what? And then she goes, do you know your history? I'm like, my history? And she began to challenge me.
Right.
And whenever I would push, she'd push back. Whenever I'd push, she'd push back. She gave me books and different things. But what she began to cultivate in me was the questioning, right? And it wasn't good. And so when I would write, I would regurgitate. And she didn't want me to regurgitate like I learned in school. She wanted me to question.
That's right.
And find answers. And for me, it was so new that I thought for sure this woman did not like me.
I thought she was punishing you, huh?
I thought she was punishing me. And I think what she taught me was it's okay to push the envelope. It's okay to fail. It's okay to think outside the box if you have a bigger mission, a bigger purpose, a bigger vision.
Right. That's right.
And that instilled in me a hunger, if you will. And I think what you're talking about is each of us getting back to that hunger for more.
Absolutely.
That hunger for understanding, that hunger for knowledge, to have a vision and a purpose that drives us, and we are called to find the answer.
Absolutely.
And you know, and I know for myself, when I train, I tell people that every time you hit a wall, you hit the boundary of who you know yourself to be, right? And the minute you push past that, fear, discomfort, whatever, you discover your next best self. But that person's been in there. Absolutely. But there's no reason for her or him to show up until you challenge yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so profound. I'm hoping that your audience is getting that, because what we're explaining, it's so, now this is profound, because the words that you're using, the hunger, the running into obstacles, the challenges, the brick wall, all of these things are part of the process. You mentioned she caused you to question, which is really the root of critical thinking, right? Critical thinking is simply when something is presented, you ask questions about it so that you can go deeper. And there's nothing wrong with saying, well, then why this? And then you go deeper, and then you go deeper, and then you get understanding. So the process that you're explaining is entrepreneurship, right? This is doing something for yourself. But in this society, the opposite is taught, or we've embraced, where when a challenge presents itself, instead of getting to that challenge and looking at it as being a wall or an obstacle that I must overcome or find a way around or find a way under it, and then knowing that once I do that, I've grown substantially. Instead of that, we shrink from that obstacle. This is where anxiety and stress, we get stressed out over an obstacle that without that obstacle, we can't be the best us that we can be.
Amen. You know, and you know, you've brought me right up against this thing called faith, right? And I know there's probably a lot of people who will say to me and you, I'm a person of faith. I'm a man of faith. I'm a woman of faith.
Yes.
And I will put to everyone listening that until you step into entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and you walk the walk of it's being built as you're taking each step, you do not understand faith.
Absolutely.
Because you're up against the unknowing and the trusting in the unknown until you're able to build a belief system, if you will.
Yes.
Until then, and I think that's the piece where you know, we are so socialized to not move until we see the full path, not because that's regurgitation, right? That's training, right? This is the path. So we are so socialized that don't move until you see the full path. If the full path isn't there, don't risk it. And you're saying get back to that place in you where you're willing to navigate the path of the unknown so that you can discover what's in you.
Absolutely. And I even go to the point, I challenge those even when they talk about faith. One thing that I've learned from I'll be 52 this year. It's not a long time, but I brag that it's a half a century, you know, so I'm good. But one of the things I challenge people, I know that God does not like cowards.
And that is true. And
I tell people it's one thing to say that you have faith, but then you won't be courageous to test your faith. We've fallen in love with spiritual cowardice, where we put that out there and then believe that there, and that becomes our excuse. That becomes the crutch. But if you analyze the scriptures, show me a man or woman with faith, and I'll show you a man or woman with works. You cannot begin to say that you're faithful if you have no fruit. And when we say fruit, and this is the other thing that I push back on, I'm not talking about $1 million. I'm not talking about being the next Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. That's another argument that I have with a lot of people about this unchecked capitalism, is that we begin to think that if we can't have that, then there's no use. That's not what I'm talking about. You and I have been talking all along about what is it that will give you fulfillment? What is it that would give you joy? And if you challenge those things, and if you are able to make enough money to provide for you and your family and be able to do the things you want, you don't need to be the next Jay-Z to be that. But yet you can have your financial independence, your financial freedom, and now you begin to explore your talents, your skills, your gifts, and you present that to the world. That's more valuable than trying to build this business. And you and I had this conversation before, where we can get into trying to build these businesses that we literally hate, you know, with all of these employees. We get into systems and programs. See, this is the stuff we let people talk about. And what you and I are trying to make crystal clear to people is that you can find your gift. You need to get on the journey to self-education, self-realization, self-actualization, and then you'll find that God is not interested in you being the next $100 billion person. He's interested in you discovering what he's deposited in you, and now you sharing it with the world and helping others. And you'll find, and I've told people, I started being more happy when I started making less money.
Amen.
When I started minimizing my expenses, right? Stop buying things that I don't need, right? To impress people that don't like me and all of that type of stuff. Once you get out of that, you'll find that I don't need to do that to be successful. I don't need all of that to be successful. I think that's what we're talking about here. So don't use blind faith as a crutch or a cop-out for you to say, you know what, I just want to be the best version of me that I can be. And whatever the result is from that, you should be completely satisfied with that.
You know what, that is so powerful, what you've just said. And I'm like, what else are we going to say after that, right? It is, you know, that is so good. And, you know, it is, you know, when I look at the scripture, I always remind myself that there's no miracle that has occurred without action first.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. Faith is a action word. And so there's always a demonstration, a leaning in to faith.
Yes.
before a miracle. And I remind myself that it is my faith that activates the becoming.
Absolutely.
Right? Because the person who had the vision is not the person who can claim the miracle. So
Absolutely.
in that gap, I've got to become.
Absolutely.
And only thing that keeps me in that process is active faith.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Not surrendering, waiting faith, but active. Let me just be in the process of becoming.
Absolutely.
So this is so good. Like this is so good.
All day, right?
um, so it's the getting back to it, and it's the self exploration, right?
Yes.
Now there are people that are listening that will probably say to you, "But Brother Bedford, you don't understand. I'm Black in America. That means I have a series of challenges and roadblocks,
Yes.
race, economics,
Yes.
Marginalization, I'm disenfranchised. And if I'm Black male, it's a whole other story. And then you'll have our sisters pushing back. And then you'll have people that are not Black people also who listening, who will tell you about their economics. They'll tell you about being a woman. They'll tell you about being a new immigrant. There are a host of reasons that people will put on the table as to why their journey is not like others.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to that?
Well, I'll definitely say they're in a long line, right? So stand at the end of the line with everyone else who says it can't happen. And I'm so glad our conversation, the way that it trended. Yes, I'm a Black man, and yes, the individuals that I speak to are primarily Black people for many of the reasons that we've named already. And then one of the main reasons is I was born this way. I can't help myself. I just love my people. You know, that's when I go to sleep, I'm thinking, how can I serve my people? When I wake up in the morning, how can I serve my people? When I'm getting little downloads in the middle of the night, it's like, well, what is the best way to help our people? So that's just me. I'm just out of that Sojourner Truth, Nat Turner type of lineage. That's just who I am. So, but that doesn't stop me from realizing the universal idea, the universal concepts, the principles that we're talking about that applies across the board to everyone. So I'm so happy that our conversation trended in the direction it began to talk about universal principles that apply to everyone. And so, yes, the white person who is dealing with certain economic challenges, and of course, for our women, the sisters primarily, again, this is a part of, and again, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the systems that have been created have been opposing the natural balance of feminine energy, feminine knowledge, the feminine way, the capacity to help us has been silenced, it's been muffled, it's been pushed down. And in fact, all of the turmoil that you see, that we're witnessing, the wars, the rumors of wars, the violence, this would be a much different place if women were in their rightful place. So I totally agree with the woman who's listening to this and saying, I have those challenges. So now we have to attack those things that stop you from expressing who and what you are, because it's not until our women begin to take that rightful place. Again, this is not a place that men give women. This is, again, God gave you everything. And I would even argue, and I've argued with brothers on this even more so, you know, we can have ideas, but it is the woman who brings those ideas to life. It is the woman who has a capacity to understand things that men just don't understand. That's why we're the perfect balance for each other. But when we're out of balance, that's why we see everything, you know, kind of like two tires rolling down the street. We're just tearing things up. Mm-hmm. And so all of the things that the challenges, the obstacles that anyone can say that is in their way, I totally agree with you. And that's why we're saying there comes a time where you have to take the challenge and say, you know, I listened to Susan and she said that I need to get on this journey of self-education. I need to find out what my natural talent, skills, and gifts are. What are my strengths that I need to cater more to what am I here for? Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, in my interview with him, I'll never forget him saying these words directly to me. And if anyone knows Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, he has this bellowy voice, and it's just the way that he speaks. And he was like, Brother Bedford, those two great moments in your life is the day you were born, but the second part is when you know why. And it's almost like he's putting his finger in your chest. And I repeat that, probably not the way that he would say it, but to anyone listening, when you begin to know your why,
Absolutely.
things change. You begin to move different. All of these excuses, you won't submit yourself to them because your why. And it's funny, I was getting ready to put up a post today. I think I still am now that we're talking about it. And it was going to be a very provocative title, but the title was going to be, is yours big enough? Now, of course, people say, what is he talking about? What do you mean is mine big enough? The thing that's going to help you, those who have, thank you, God, those of you who have all of these excuses or the challenges that, again, we don't want to diminish them. You have to find your why, because your why has to be big enough to overcome all of these challenges, these difficulties that are sure to arise. There's no way to get around these challenges, the racism, the sexism, it's in the world. So now your why has to be so big that when these things confront you, you're able to overcome them. So that question, I would say that's the exercise you want to do.
It's the building of the muscle.
Absolutely. You have to ask yourself, why? Why do you want this? Why do you want some money? And then go down another level. Why do I need this money? But why do I want $100,000? Okay, now I got the $100,000. Why? And once you drill all the way down and you find in your core your why, all of these excuses, all of these challenges, they just become stepping stones to you stepping into your greatness.
Yeah, so well said. And I truly believe that, there's only one Brother Bedford. There's only one Suzanne Hart. There's only one of every single person listening. And we all have our unique giftings. And although my gift may be similar to someone else, my walk is my unique walk. So when you combine my unique walk with my gift, it's special. And there's a group of people in this world, on this planet, that are waiting for your unique gift and your unique walk to join.
Absolutely.
When you find out what that is, it pulls you, right? It absolutely pulls you. I think the other thing, and I love how you say, all the reasons why not are the reasons why too.
Absolutely.
And for me, I remind myself that, and I say this all the time, diamonds are created under extreme pressure.
That's correct.
Right? There is a pressure that is creation, right? So every time you think, well, it's racism, yeah, it is, but that's the pressure that's going to create your unique gift. It's preparing you. When you say it's economics, yeah, it is. That's the pressure that's going to create your unique preparation. When you say it's whatever it is, it serves a purpose.
That's right.
To create you as the best teacher.
Absolutely.
As the best, whatever you're called to do, you've got to walk the journey to become the person that can stand in that place. Because when you walk the journey and you overcome each one of these places and spaces, it gives you the tools to impart to someone else. It gives you, and it's not, and this is the thing, this is not training. Right? You can't get this in school, because school doesn't tell you to go walk and get beat up, rise back up. They don't tell you that, your best self is built like when you get up from the fall.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the real journey. But that's the journey that makes it worth it. But that's also the journey that has you stand 10 feet tall and bulletproof and say, bring it on. I'm ready because I've walked the walk.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
You when those things happen, you begin to welcome the challenges. Nothing pleases you more once you get on that journey. Now that's the key, to get on that journey. So it's always the trepidation is to get on that road. But once you're on that road, and going back to the faith piece that we were talking about earlier, the only way to increase your faith and to increase your confidence is to begin to knock down these little obstacles. And the more you knock them down, the stronger you get, the bolder you get, the more you start to feel empowered, and it starts to emanate from you. And then you start looking for the challenges, because you know without those challenges, you can't go anymore, right? You start to shrink. But the more challenges you have, and I tell you, and I'm speaking from experience, and you get to the point where, especially as an entrepreneur, but in life in general, we have these ebb and flows, these ups and downs, these peaks, these valleys, these days of extreme light and these days of extreme darkness. And once you're able to navigate all of that, that is truly when you begin to become your best self, right? That
You
is
know,
when you become that.
absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that and the way you said it. You know, one of the things when I met you and we've connected at the Power Networking, on several occasions. And that was the first time I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain people that you meet them and there's an energetics to them. There's an energy,
Yeah.
right? And I know I've told you that you are this quiet power.
Thank you.
Right? But the reason that I experience it is because in you there's a knowing.
Yes.
Right? There's a knowing of who you are and what you're capable of because you've been on the journey. And people want to shortcut that knowing. They want to shortcut and they want to show up with that swagger and that whatever we're talking about. And you can't shortcut it because it's your knowing that I'm feeling, right? It's you know that you know that you know, and the energy of that, I pick it up and I'm like, there's something about that brother, right? And it's so important to highlight because people don't want to go on the journey, but they want to show up.
That's correct.
With that way, but that way is only found if you're willing to navigate the highs, the lows, the ups and downs, and those moments where you think life just sat on my chest. I don't know what to do.
Absolutely. And it's not sustainable any other way. It's interesting you say that, because when we first met, and it shows you how time flies. It's been some years, and in order for us to sustain that energy, you have to go through these challenges. Anyone who gets it by way of shortcut, the instant gratification. You can have a moment in the spotlight, or you can have a moment like that, but it's not lasting. So again, that's when you know that a person has gone through the challenges, the obstacles. One, they understand that there's no need to compare yourself to others. I'm glad you started off with that when you said there's only one you, one me. Again, I think that's the other thing that stops us, because we're looking at, I can never do as Susan do. You're not supposed to do as Susan.
No.
You're supposed to do your own. Susan is a guide to help you to get on your journey. And once you're there, then you're going to go in your direction, and you'll look back and you'll applaud Susan for helping you to get on your journey, your path, your unique gifting, right? And so that takes time to do that. And the instant gratification, what is that clearing, what is that publishing house thing that comes where you'll be rich overnight. So many of us want that type of stuff. Yeah. And that's when you find out, we don't have time to go through all the statistics, but if you study, you'll find that all of those who hit lotteries, who did that, the athletes who got fame and fortune too fast, the entertainers that got fame and fortune too fast, it's fleeting. It's gone. It's only a matter of time before you see that person who you once thought was invincible, and then all of a sudden you don't see them anymore. They just don't have that skill set or that strength anymore. And that's because they haven't gone through the things that we talked about. They took the shortcut, and that's not lasting.
And there's no such thing. There's no such thing.
That's right.
I cannot believe it has been, I think it's been an hour.
Oh, wow. Well, I know the brother can talk. I know the brother can talk.
But the content, it's one thing to talk, and it's a whole other thing to just bring such beautiful content. Can you come back and we can talk some more?
Oh, absolutely. These are the conversations that I prefer to have. When someone has asked me, what website can I build, or what software, all of that is irrelevant. All of that stuff is irrelevant. That's why it's so cheap. The phones, the cameras, they're so cheap now, because the true power the true talent lies in us nowadays. So you can go out and get all of the technology in the world, but until we do the things that we're talking about today, they will be of no use to you.
Mm.
So I love these conversations.
You know, and it's all here. That's why for me, mindset, mastering your mindset mastery is everything, because once you master that, life takes on a whole new dimension and direction.
Absolutely.
So before we close, tell everyone about Masters of Business. Tell everyone about this mastermind. It's new, it's timely. So share.
Yeah, I'll share it rather quickly. The reason I start, it's a labor of love, right? It's been on my mind to do the Masters of Business for years, and something, it just didn't click. And I've mentioned it to several people, and everybody that I'd mentioned it to, including George Fraser, our mentor, and they would always say, "Man, that's such a great idea, and you know, how are you, when are you going to do it?" And they were waiting on me to do it, but I knew just something wasn't right in terms of technology and how I wanted to do it. But recently, the technology has come about to where we could have this type of community, this environment. So it's called the Masters of Business. It simply goes to what you and I have been talking about for the past hour, where we have to get into self-mastery and mastering entrepreneurship and business. I once heard a statement a while ago that has really been, if one wants to say, the impetus for doing what I do is when I heard this statement saying that the science of business and the science of life is one and the same. And so if you can master the science of business and you can master the science of life, you'll always be successful. And so that's where this mastery of business comes in at. And this is what I've been on my mission to do for the past few years. And so this is actually an online network and mastermind. Most masterminds, and you do retreats and masterminds. So all they have to do is ask you that when you're, and it's not a secret that well, it is a secret for some, that the key to success for many of the people that you see is and in particular, I just wrote this today too. It's funny, our conversation kind of dovetails right back into what we're both doing currently. This secret to what white millionaires and billionaires, I've studied them, I've gone to conferences and workshops, and one of the things that they all point to that's being the key ingredient to their success, and it comes from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which he didn't originate it because he actually studied the millionaires and billionaires of that time. And he discovered that one of the things that was the key ingredient to their success, and even to the success of the Jim Rohns, the Zig Ziglars, and Grant Cardones, everybody that you're watching today, they all participate in masterminds. Yeah. They all participate in masterminds. And Napoleon Hill describes that as where you have one person or an individual, one mind coming together with another mind, and them coming together, and they create this third mind, this third thinking that helps them to both solve their individual problems, their issues, to improve their lives and their businesses. But I would even take you further. There's a scripture. So just so that people will say, well, Napoleon Hill started. No, there's a scripture that says that where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of you. And so that just really rung so true to me that once we come together, you come together with me and we come together, and now we create this energy, this new thought, this new process, this new energy, this new knowledge, this new body of wisdom, this collective wisdom, that if we're humble enough, now we can take from each other and we can grow our lives and our businesses and have tremendous success. And true, if you're looking for a shortcut, brothers and sisters, those of you who are watching, the shortcut to your success is beginning to be network and mastermind with people who are doing what it is that you want to do. So that's what the Masters of Business is. Most masterminds would cost a tremendous amount of money to become a part of. As I was alluding to it yourself, you know that as well, retreating and masterminding, it costs a pretty penny. So me dealing with our people, and trying to figure out how can we get this message out to the masses and make it, one, cost effective, but also effective in the delivery, was to find the technology and the way to create an online platform where we can have training, networking, and masterminding. And that's what the Masters of Business, that's what's all it has, those things.
So if someone wanted to reach out, get connected, to find out more, how will they do that?
I would say go to brobedford.com. That's short for brotherbedford.com. That's BROBEDFORD.com. And actually, while you're there, you can see more information about the Massive Business, but also there, you can actually set up a free consultation with me. Just go ahead and pull up my calendar, set up a time. We can get on the phone for 15 minutes, and maybe I can answer a question or two and see if I can help.
And after this conversation, who would not do that? Seriously?
Hey, I'm honored, man. I'm telling you, Susan, this is what I love to do. Again, look at what we're doing.
I'm gonna set up some time.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go to Brother Bedford to set up my free consultation. Goodness.
Well, yes, I'd love to do it and to help you with anything that I can, any type of insight. Because I'm telling you, Susan, the one thing that you and I have learned is the small things. Sometimes I get on the phone with a person. I was just on a consultation yesterday. A woman was going through a whole bunch of stuff. And I just said, had you considered this? Do you have a list of 10 people? She's like, yeah, I got 10 people that I could call right now. And it was just like the weight of the world was lifted off of her shoulders. And so sometimes just those small things from an objective eye, someone who's not personally involved, who can just say, well, you know what, have you considered this? Have you looked at this? And everything can change with those. That's why I enjoy doing those calls.
I love it. I did a similar call yesterday, and I asked the person, what do you want to do? Forget what everybody else wants you to do. What do you want to do?
Right. That's
and
right.
she was like, oh.
Good question.
It's the little things. Brother Bedford, thank you so much. For everyone listening, the word today is mastermind. So if you put mastermind in the comment section, we will make sure you know when the replay comes out. We will make sure you know when the next live is. And we'll also put in a way to get in contact with Brother Bedford right in there so you have it. Thank you. This was just fantastic.
Oh, it's hard to say goodbye, isn't it?
All right, everyone.
Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate you and love all of the work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. I've been speaking with Brother Bedford. This is Suzanne Hart. I'll see you back here next Thursday for more Mindset Mastery. Take care.